Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Musings from the Shop. I'd like to thank people, those who have viewed my other two little presentations, and I'd like to thank you for your likes and for your feedback. And I'd like to just say, hey, if you agree with what I'm saying here, please hit like and the subscribe button, and don't be afraid to share what we have here. I'm not making any money off from this. It's just little old me and my cell phone recording this. I don't have any sponsors, nothing like that. So the way we get the word out is by sharing. And I thoroughly believe that silence is consent. And I just don't consent to what's going on lately. So again, hit like and subscribe, and let's get to some things that I'd like to talk about today. This past week, the United Nations had voted on a resolution that would have condemned, or that did condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine. Well, folks, I hate to tell you this, but it is official. We have aligned with the bad guys. Think about that. We voted against the resolution. We voted against, we chose instead to vote with a dictator. You want to know who else voted against this resolution? There were a total of 18 countries that voted against it. And a lot of those countries, to be honest with you, I'd never heard of them. I'm not an expert on geography or anything like that. But here's some of the highlights of, or the lowlights, if you will, of the other countries who voted against the resolution, the United Nations resolution. Haiti voted against it. Hungary, Iran, no surprise there. Israel, again, no surprise. Nicaragua, Niger, North Korea, Russia, of course, Sudan, and the good old United States of America. I can remember, in history, people have united, the world has united in the past against dictatorships. And in those past fights, campaigns, whatever you want to call them, we chose the right side of history. We chose to defeat a dictator like Hitler, for instance. You remember him? But now we have basically crapped on our allies. These are countries who we fought alongside with, I should say our military personnel fought alongside with, bled alongside, and died alongside in the preservation of freedom and human rights in the world. We have now turned our backs on those countries that were our friends. Hitler, when he came into power in the 1930s, he managed to destroy a constitutional republic in 51 days. 51 days. He and his Nazi party completely outlawed any opposing parties, and they had complete control of Germany, and they were going after the world. 51 days. Right now, today, February 25th, 2025, we are on day 37 of a 1,461-day presidential term. 37. We only got 1,424 to go. How you feeling? MAGAs, a lot of MAGAs think that, that they think that Trump ought to be in power for even longer than that. During the last presidential campaign, of course, everybody had rallies. Biden had rallies, Kamala Harris had rallies, and of course, Trump had rallies. He's been having rallies ever since he came down the golden escalator back in for the 2016 election. And of course, these rallies attract some attention, and people would go in and interview the supporters of these particular candidates. And I remember I've seen several videos where MAGA supporters have been interviewed. Now, these are the people with, they've got the MAGA hat on and the American flag or the Trump flag draped about their bodies. And I remember one interviewer asked several MAGAs, Trump has said that he would like to be a dictator. And how do you feel about that? And these mouth-breathing, ignorant, stupid troglodytes all said, well, maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. Really? Are you fucking kidding me? It would not be a bad thing to have a dictator leading this country, the country that was once the home of the free? Right now, I'm going to digress just a little bit. I have here a little booklet, and I know it's reverse image. I'm using the screen camera on my phone for this. This is the the Declaration of the Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And right now, what is contained in this little booklet, and it's not very big, it's only like 58 pages, but what is contained within this little booklet are the foundational building blocks of our democracy. And this is the only thing that is keeping Donald Trump from becoming a dictator. This. The only way that he can achieve his goal is to make this null and void. So my question is, if the Constitution goes away, what happens to the Second Amendment? Now, a lot of these people that support Trump, they like to parade around with their AK-47 or AR-15 or whatever the fuck that thing is that they got strapped to their back. They have, multiple weapons, on their belt and ammunition pouches all over the place because they support the Second Amendment. What happens to that when we get a dictatorship? Do you really think, are you really stupid enough to believe that somehow there will be an exemption for that? Think again, folks. Dictators do not like having an armed populace. Do you think Putin allows people to have guns? How about Erdogan? How about Xi in China? How about Kim Jong-un? Do you think any of those people allow any kind of gun rights in their countries? It might surprise you to know that I am not anti-gun. Okay? Let's get that out there right now. I am a gun owner. I have had and possessed a concealed pistol license. Here in Washington State, we call that a concealed pistol license. Some states, it's a concealed weapons permit, but here it's a CPL. I've had one of those for almost 20 years now. And yes, occasionally I do carry. The difference is that when I do carry, I don't feel the need, like some of these mouth-breathing idiots do, to take my weapon out and publicly masturbate with it. When I put that weapon on my person, I do so with the fervent hope that nobody ever has to know it's there. It's one of those things that it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And I thoroughly believe that it's not something to be just taken out and shown off for what? To make you look like a tough guy? Come on. But if Trump becomes a dictator, the right to carry is going to go away. I can pretty much guarantee you that will happen. Again, dictators do not like having an armed populace. And in the past, I used to go to gun shows with my father-in-law, and he would go about once a month. And it took probably about 5 or 6 years, or maybe even longer, before I actually purchased a gun at the gun show. Usually I would come away with some sort of machine shop equipment, because a lot of those guys there are gunsmiths. And myself being an amateur machinist, I would, they would be selling, cutters or whatever. And the standing joke was, what kind of a rusty piece of iron is Randy going to come home today that's not a gun? But anyway, when we would go to these gun shows, as you're walking through, you would hear snippets of conversation. And this was particularly, during the Obama presidency. Everybody thought that Obama was going to take your guns. The reality is, Barack Obama was probably one of the best things that ever happened to the gun manufacturers, because everybody was going to buy their guns and buy their ammunition, and prices just went through the roof. And I'd hear snippets of conversation like, well, what are you going to do when the government comes, or government, as I like to say, comes to get your guns? And the response that I would hear would be, well, as soon as they come up over the ridge, I'm going to open fire. Really? Do you honestly believe that you are going to hold off the entire military forces of the United States of America? I don't care how many guns you have. I don't care how many rounds of ammunition you have stockpiled. No matter how much you have, they're going to bring more. There are people that thought that they could take on the government. A couple of them come to mind. This one guy, Randy Weaver, I think was his name. Another one, that idiot down in Waco, Texas. Now, I'll admit, I will say this much. I think that the FBI or the authorities really screwed the pooch on both of those cases. I think they really could have been settled much more peaceably and without the loss of life. But it happened. But the point I'm trying to make is that these guys all stockpiled a lot of guns, a lot of ammunition. They were hunkered down. And it just didn't end well for them. You're not going to fight it off if it comes your way. If Donald Trump decides to be a dictator, you will lose your right to bear arms. Guaranteed. So it's basically all up to you, MAGAs. You control the White House. You control both houses of Congress and the Supreme Court. The Democrats have pretty much been neutered. All we can do is stand around, yell, and scream. But ultimately, the power lies within you. And if you really want to protect your constitutional rights, these very rights that are currently being threatened, and if you don't believe that, you need to wake up. Then you are the ones, particularly those of you who live in red states, you need to help your elected representatives grow a spine. You need to contact them. You need to tell them. You need to let them know that we do not want a dictatorship in this country. And we certainly don't want an unelected immigrant from South Africa basically running the country, because Donald Trump has just about advocated all of his powers to Elon Musk. Now, a little bit about Elon and his Doge people. I agree that there is waste and abuse in government. But Elon Musk, contrary to what he's trying to feed you, is not really doing anything about it. His sole purpose in going after all of these government agencies is to basically call off the dogs who are investigating him and his businesses. Currently, Elon Musk was being investigated by 12 different agencies of the United States government. And he was his companies were being investigated from everything from environmental violations to security concerns at the Department of Defense. That is why he is going in and trying to take a chainsaw to our government. He doesn't give a shit about waste, fraud, and abuse. Hell, he's part of it. He just wants to call off the dogs that are barking at his heels. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? Take a good look at the waste that occurred just to haul Donald Trump's fat ass to the Super Bowl. Estimates are the total cost for that little jaunt anywhere from $10 to $20 million. I know that's a pretty broad range, but just the cost of Air Force One alone for that round trip, just for Air Force One and its crew, was $927,747.65. Just for Air Force One. Just to take him to a football game that he didn't even stay for the whole thing. Let's talk about Daytona. They're estimating that little trip costs about $5 million. Just so he could do a few laps around the track with Air Force One and then get out there in his motorcade, so everybody could cheer and give him all the accolades that he so desperately craves. I remember another photograph that kind of looks similar to that, where Hitler was riding around the track of a stadium so that everybody could cheer him as well. Parallels? Yeah, I think so. There is waste, fraud, and abuse in government. But you don't take a chainsaw to do a job that requires a scalpel. And Elon is claiming that he's found all this waste, fraud, and abuse, and people are posting on social media that, oh yeah, we're all going to be getting $5,000 checks. He's going to send us all every taxpayer's going to get a $5,000 refund just from the waste, fraud, and abuse that he is supposedly finding. Well, another blogger that I watch, he did the math. And he took the figure, and I forget what it was that Elon was posting, that he'd so supposedly saved us. And he did the math. And it turned out that it wasn't $5,000. It was more like maybe right in the neighborhood of $200 per taxpayer. That's it. But reality is, Doge has nothing to do with government efficiency. It's all about covering Elon's ass. Well, that's about all I've got for today. I vented my spleen enough for once. If you like what I have to say, if you agree, again, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. That way you'll find out when I'm putting more of these on. And I'll be doing some more of them. I got more crap to talk about. But for now, remember, silence is consent. And everybody have a good day and keep it between the ditches.